Hey there, fellow rock tumblers, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to show you the different grits I use to make my rocks really shiny. We're going to take this small pile of petrified wood and use the mini sonic and go through the 4 different grits that I use, hopefully resulting in a beautiful, shiny pile of rocks in the end. These are all pieces of petrified wood that I have been using as filler material in my barrels. I use this stuff instead of ceramic media. Mostly because after a while they get perfectly smooth like this and become little gemstones when you polish them. So they should be the perfect rock for this video. Follow me into the shop and I will show you the 4 different grits I use and the times I take using the mini sonic to make these rocks really shiny. Welcome to the shop. Let's get started. The first thing we need to do is get the barrel properly loaded. As you can see, there aren't a lot of rocks in there, so we're going to have to add some ceramic. Let's see what kind of motion we have now. That's not too bad. So, what we're going to do is add some ceramic. I'm going to put in a few handfuls here. A little bit more, I think. A little bit more. Okay, let's see what that does for our action. That looks better. I think we can add even a little bit more. Yeah, I like the way that looks. So we've got good action. The next step will be to add the first stage, which is 220 grit silicon carbide. For this size hopper, I use just 1 tablespoon. I slowly put it in. Make sure it gets nicely spread out. Like so. After that, I like to add a little bit of water. I made sure that the stones were wet before we started. But if you've used a vibratory tumbler before, you know that these things can be a little tricky to work with as far as moisture goes. So I like the way that looks right there. The action looks good. What I'm going to do now is put the cover on, and I'm going to run this like this for 3 days. At the end of that 3rd day, I'll run a cleaning cycle. I'll show you that as well. And between now and then, I'm going to be checking on this every so often just to make sure that we've got good action and we do not need to add water, or to make sure that the hopper doesn't seize up, which can happen if you've got larger rocks in there. I think we'll be okay with this batch. Yeah, nice and quiet. If you did hear some noise, it was probably this new guy I'm working on here. I just built this one this weekend and having fun with it. I'll check back with you soon. 3 days have passed. Now it's time for the wash cycle. You can see how the slurry looks. What I do here is add a little bit of dishwashing soap and then quite a bit of water. And I let this go overnight. I want these rocks really clean. The 220 stage is all finished. It was about, well, close to 4 days if you consider the extra day of the wash cycle. Here's one of the rocks after that. You can see there's not much of a shine on it, but it's smooth. That looks good. Now, what's the next stage? We've done the 220. Let me go ahead and get this thing fired up. The rocks are all cleaned off, looking good. Good action. Now we can go to the next stage. This is 600 grit silicon carbide. I do about a tablespoon. And like before, I try to distribute it evenly. Like so. To help with the grit, I also like to put in a little bit of borax. That'll thicken it up, help the grit stick to the rocks. And finally add a little bit of extra water because I know it's going to need it. For the 600 grit, I'm going to let this go for 2 days. It's been a little over 2 days and the 600 grit stage is finished. This is how it looks now. That same piece I showed you earlier. Can't really tell much of a difference, right? But it is smoother. Think of it like sanding wood with finer and finer grits. Yeah, this is much smoother and getting ready for the polishing, but we have one more stage to go before we polish it, and that will be the 1500 grit silicon carbide stage. That's right. I like to do this stage just to really get that surface ready and prepared for the polish. Let's go ahead and fire it up. I'm going to add my usual approximately 1 tablespoon of the 1500 grit, like so. And just like before, I'm going to add a little bit of borax just to help develop that slurry. Like so. And again, a little bit of water because we know we're gonna need some more water. And now we're gonna let that go for 2 more days. So 2 more days at 1500 grit. The 1500 grit silicon carbide stage is all finished. This is now what the pieces look like. As you can see, we're getting a little bit of a shine. Now, it's not a great shine. Had I used aluminum oxide 1500, this would be really shiny, but I prefer to use the silicon carbide because I believe that it better prepares the surface for what's coming next. And what's coming next? Well, I've started using this Ray Bright A instead of the 1 micron aluminum oxide, and I think the results might be a little bit better. So for this video, we're gonna use the Ray Bright A. Let's get this thing fired up. I'm gonna add about a ½ tablespoon of the Ray Bright A. Like so. And just like before, I'm gonna add a little bit of the borax to help develop that slurry. Yeah. Give it a little bit more water. And I'm going to let this go for at least 4 days. That's right, at least 4 days, maybe 5. This is where patience is a virtue because the longer you wait, the better these are going to be. We'll see that very soon. We are finally finished with the polishing of this petrified wood. This is the piece that I was showing you along the way. I wanted you to see it in this light before we take all of them back inside to get a closer look. As you can see, it's got a good shine on it. That was the goal, after all. Let's go back inside now and take a closer look at all of them. Welcome back inside. What do you think? Did we end up with a shiny batch of rocks? The answer is yes, we did. And now you know my secret. This is how I make my rocks really shiny. I use those 4 different grits in the vibratory tumbler, and it gives a beautiful shine, as you can see. So I should point out that I did the overnight cleaning cycle for each of those grit stages. So in total, this was more like 13, 14 days, but it was well worth it. Let's take a closer look at some of the nicer ones. This palm wood is just so fun to tumble and polish. Each piece is a little work of art. All those needle-like veins in them. Aren't those great? So as you can see, the shine looks really good. That's what the Ray Bright A will do for you at the end. But those steps leading up to it, I think, really help. It's important to get the surface just as smooth as possible before applying that final polishing. Check out the pattern on this one right here when I get it close. Ooh. Tell me that's not a beautiful piece of wood right there. Well, there are some fractures in it. So it's not flawless, although the tumble itself looks pretty flawless, but the rock itself has those fractures. What are you gonna do, right? Here's a larger piece that also took a great shine. You see the reflection in there. The surface is, well, looks pretty good. Got some sweat prints on it. These gloves are not doing their job, I guess. Yeah, what else is new? When it comes to this palm wood, my favorite pieces are the ones that are slightly translucent and show their amazing needle-like structures on the inside. Look at that right there. That is really cool. That is almost wicked looking. I can imagine this in a horror movie, coming down from the ceiling to do terrible things to me. Well, let's start having nicer thoughts. I like this piece a lot because it shows them in the head-on shot. Look at that there. It's as if this thing has measles? Yeah. Just a bunch of spots on it. This one really took an awesome shine. Again, you can see that reflection right there. It's a very smooth surface. Beautiful piece of wood. I hope you agree. You want a little more color? Check this one out. We've got some red. Oh, wow. That's beautiful. A little small, but beautiful. This one's even smaller, but it may be my favorite of the whole batch. You see this side, then you got that, and then check this out here. It's hard to hold on to this. I may drop it. I'm trying not to. That is a very cool piece of petrified palm wood. Here's another one with some awesome patterning in it. Look at this. Wow, that is beautiful. Let's see this side. Ooh, even better, I think. Wow. I can imagine this being a pendant or some sort of jewelry. This is the largest one of the group. Yeah, looks pretty good. You see the surface has some small imperfections, but that was just part of the rock. I don't think I could have gotten rid of that had I continued to coarse grit grind it, but we'll never know. Still, took a great shine. You see that reflection. And it has a decent pattern. Here's another standard piece of wood, in other words, not the palm wood. Has again, though, a beautiful pattern in it and some color. So you don't have to be the palm wood to be beautiful, but it helps. This piece of palm wood, for example, has a rustic look to it. Check this out right here. That reminds me of an old log cabin. Those little, let's call them, I don't know, I was going to call them little, like a burled walnut. What is it? How would you describe that? It's got some sort of very classic wood look to it. Here's one that has an otherworldly look to it. Not so much on this side, but I think on this side. This reminds me of, well, the surface of another planet. Not that I've ever been. I'm just thinking of images I've seen from NASA and science fiction movies I've watched. As you can see, there's lots of detail in there. You know what we're gonna do? I'm gonna go ahead and throw the magnifying lens on this camera and we're gonna take a close-up look at some of these. So here's one of those tree veins up close. I think that's kind of interesting. Looks like there's some structure to that. Okay, let's check out some of the other rocks. I spotted this interesting feature on one of these rocks. I call it an owl. What do you think? Doesn't that look like a little owl right there staring back at us? Seriously, how fun is that? Here's a good view of them head on. Little polka dots, right? But once again, you can see the structure within that rock. If I can keep it focused, yeah, right there. These tubes are some of my favorites. Check that out. Yeah, aren't those interesting? They look like needles, right? Syringe needles. That's exactly what those look like, and they're about the right size as well. Here's another interesting close-up showing those little syringe needles coming through. Yeah, just popping through at that angle. Isn't that, well, interesting. Boy, this is nothing but a batch full of interesting rocks. Watch as we scroll over this one here. You see those tiny white specks that make up this rock. Wow, that's, I don't want to say interesting again, so I'm going to say that is fascinating. Once again, more of our little syringe needles up close. Yeah. They almost look terrifying, magged up like this. This is just a regular piece of petrified wood. I think it's still pretty cool though. May not have those needles in it, but still, if you look closely, lots of detail within that pattern, right? But let's face it, that normal petrified wood cannot hold a stick to this palm wood. The petrified palm wood that we find here in Texas is just so fascinating. Look at that right there. That structure. There is a lot going on in this little rock. Seriously, how much of a nightmare is this shot right here? This is one of those small pieces of palm wood that has the holes that go all the way through. I'm moving my finger behind the eyeball right there. He's winking at us. This horrible looking monster is winking at us. Each piece is a little work of art. Check this one out. Wow, that palm wood is really something up close. This looks like a painting, an impressionist painting. Just gorgeous stuff. Oh, there's the edge. I'm so glad I decided to look at these up close like this. And I'll end on this tiny one right here. This is a very small tumbled stone. I'm just barely able to hold it up there against the lens. You see there's one edge right there. There's the other edge. It's a very small piece, but it packs quite a punch. I think it's time we stop zooming in and get back to the video. Well, I think that was worth it. Pretty interesting stuff. Are there any more cool ones in the batch? Hang on. As I said early on, I really like these ones that show just about all of the tubing going through them. These needles are a little bit smaller than the other ones we were seeing, so these wouldn't hurt so bad. I got to show you this one before this video's over. This side it's pretty, right? Yeah. But look at this side here. I think that's gorgeous. See the color in there and that pattern? I know it's very small, but what a pretty rock. We're almost done. Check out this little nugget right here. Yeah. Palm wood all the way, right? Cool little rock. And I'll end on this one. This is the one that I was showing you throughout the video. Yeah. Not a perfect, flawless tumble, but it's close. And the wood grain on this one I think is very nice. That looks like a piece of wood you could go buy today from your local lumber yard. It's hard to believe that this was a living thing millions and millions of years ago. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I do appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed seeing how I make my rocks shiny. I'm sure that you have your own formulas out there and you get great results as well. So I'm not ever going to try to tell you how to tumble rocks. I just wanted to show you the way I do it. I hope you agree that we got some good looking rocks. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. And if you enjoy videos like this, check my playlist. I've got lots more rock tumbling videos for you to enjoy. Thanks again for watching.